3 minutes past, according to me. So Ali has just, I've just had a bubble up saying that it's started. Well done, Ali. Right, before we start then, I'm Bev Frowen and I'm the Bursary Relationship Manager, which means I try and engage with people and do the best I can to make sure that anyone who takes the bursary feels supported and knows where to go if they get any questions or issues around the bursary. I'll go straight over to Owen, and Owen can introduce himself and what he does. There you go, Owen.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Bev. Yeah, my name's Owen, and I'm one of the deputy managers in the Student Award Services. There's 2 of us currently, and we obviously administer the bursary scheme in terms of assessing the applications and producing relevant payment schedules. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Ali?
Morning all, I'm Ali. I support Bev. I'm the bursary administrator.
Ali is the person who keeps the wheels on the wagon, keeps me in train and everything else. So very important person, Ali. And if you get emails or responses that is the HCIW bursary team, more likely than not, it's come from Ali. So it's nice for you to put a face. And as you guess, Ali is from Aussie, and we're very glad that she's over here in Wales. Okay, I'm going to start sharing some slides, which hopefully will guide us into the session and remind me just, basically what I'm supposed to be saying. Here we go. I'll wait a minute for that to come up. Is that okay? Can people see that? Yeah. Now, because I'm sharing my slides, I won't be able to see if people have put their hands up for questions until I pull the slides down. So I'll quickly run through that and keep your questions, and then I'll stop sharing the slides and we'll be able to see who's what. Okay, so this is predominantly for people who've just started in university, started on your courses, and it's your chance to ask us some questions. It's by no means your only chance. We're here all the time, 5 days a week, and you'll understand that what we try to do is engage with people and make sure that you do get a response and that you're not languishing with questions that you don't know who to turn to. So that's the idea today. We'll kick it off with just a few aims to tell you that we're here and how you can make contact with us. We want to make contact with you, want to give you information about the bursary, clarify any questions, and as I said, I'm responsible for the governance of the terms and conditions of the bursary that you may have signed or you may be thinking of signing, because one of the important reasons that we do these sessions when we do is that you will know you have a 10-week period when you can change your mind. So this is to help people make sure that they've made the right choice and that you've been as informed as possible, because we do get people, believe it or not, who don't read the terms and conditions, not as informed as they should be, and then down the line problems arise and maybe they wanted to change their mind or not. So this is why we run the sessions now between us and shared services, so that you get an opportunity to make that choice in the best possible receipt of information. And then finally, just to give you links so that you know where to turn to, either from the bursary team or the student awards team. Okay, so this is how we generally run the sessions. They run for about an hour. They're predominantly easy flowing answers, and if we can't answer it, we'll make a note of it. If you don't want to ask a question, either because it's too personal or you just don't feel that you want everybody else, then put it in the chat bar or just send it to us by email after the session if you just want to do it any way that you want to. Send in your queries, as I say. maybe you'll go away and think, oh, I wish I'd answered that, asked that. Damn, I've missed my opportunity. No, you haven't. You can send in queries to us. As I say, we're here 5 days a week. The sessions are recorded. What we'll do over the next couple of days is we'll link in with our comms team in HIW, and they will put a link up onto the HIW Bursary webpage. As we do the sessions, all the sessions will go up onto there. Okay, so as I say, is the bursary the right option for you to help you with the costs of studying? You have other choices. You have student loans. You might be rich and want to be able to fund it yourself, or you may have a very nice supportive family, benefactors that can help you out. So the bursary is here. What I always say to people is I'm neither for or against the bursary. My job is to try and link in with people and support people. But I do feel very passionate that people make the choice with as much information as they can. And as people go through their studies, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, sometimes we get people that say, perhaps it wasn't the right thing for me, or thank God I took the bursary. I would never have been able to do it without it. So one of the few of the things that I just would like you to consider, and it's very difficult to fast forward 3 years. It's really difficult. But unfortunately, you make choices at the best time that you can, in the best way you can. And we do have built into the system a recognition that life changes, and that what you're thinking now may not be the same in 3 years' time. But as a starter, these are some of the things that I would like people to really think about. The bursary is there to help you with your costs of studying. It's a very generous bursary in one way, in that it pays your tuition fees, which is roughly about 29,000 over the 3-year period. So it's a significant amount of public sector money that the government sets aside to help you, because we want you to train in Wales and we want you to work and stay in Wales. In return, nothing is for nothing in the world. And in return, we ask that you commit to working for 2 years, sometimes 18 months, depending on the course, in Wales. And you can work anywhere in Wales. You don't have to stay in the same health board. You can move around. All we ask is that you work for those first 2 years after you train. So think about your ability in 3 years' time to whether or not you can move around and take up a job. And some of the things that may restrict you are if you've got children, if you're with a partner, you've already committed to a mortgage, maybe you've got caring duties. Think about, can I work if a job comes up in any part of Wales, or can I only work in this particular area? Because that is going to limit your choice of getting a job. And as I say, we want you to work after you've qualified. Think about your personal commitments. As I say, we get people take the bursary, a whole range of ages, circumstances. You may be retraining, you may have caring duties with family, you may have children going to school, you may be a single parent where childcare is different. Are you going to be able to possibly relocate and go and work somewhere else? Think about your training and your job that you've chosen to do and how you want to do that. Are you okay with a long bus journey or a commute? Do you want flexible part-time hours? Can you see yourself in the next couple of years only being able to work in a flexible way? is the specialty that you're training for, will it be rotational and not in one place? In which case you might need to be mobile, you'll need to be able to drive. All sorts of things about what's fast forward yourself. This is what I say to people: fast forward yourself if you can for 3 years when you come out of your training. And then finally, this is just to remind people, if you take the bursary, it's not a guarantee of a job. And we hear this, Ali and I hear it all the time. Oh, I thought if I took the bursary, I'd be okay getting a job. The bursary is to help you with your costs whilst training. It is not a guarantee of a job. We want you to. We will try and do the best we can, and our health boards, our trusts, our private sector, our local authorities, they want you. But there is never a guarantee that if you take the bursary, you will automatically get a job. And you may be expected to move. And so if you train in Cardiff, and jobs come up in West Wales, Mid Wales, or even North Wales, there is an inbuilt expectation that you will at least consider going to work in those places. So again, it's not a guarantee. I'm trained in Swansea. I only want to work in Swansea. I can only work within 10 or 15 miles of Swansea. Maybe the bursary and the terms and conditions may not allow you to have such a rigid flexibility of where you see yourself working. And as I say, you can move around, but we do expect you to consider various parts of Wales. Okay, so will you be able to live on the money? These are other things. This is more now in Owen's world, about, you're obviously going to be hugely interested in what's my assessment, what money is available to me, what am I going to get? So I just put this slide in because, you know, I understand there's a huge financial issue to consider, and then there's the terms and conditions. Can you comply with that 2-in and make your commitment to return that investment that we want to give you to work in Wales? So will you be able to live on the money? Well, you know, that's a question that everybody has to think about, and it'll be different, won't it, for everybody? But, you know, will you be able to live on it? What's the difference between what you would get on the bursary and if you took other funding streams? And that is an issue for you to be in dialogue with the shared services. As I say, I'm not the money person. I can't have a discussion with you about what will you get and how much and when, because that is a separate part of the bursary management. Will you have other finances to fall back on if your things change? That's something. Have you got savings? Have you got somebody that can help you out if life gets tough? Because I think the bursary T's and C's and the assessments are quite fixed by government policy. They're not set by HIW or by shared services, by Owen. They are schedules that are agreed because the money is coming from Welsh Government. So there are restrictions and limits to the different elements of the bursary. So have you got any, if times get tough, you know, have you got things to fall back on? And really, some of these questions are for every student, aren't they, deciding to train, because you've got to live and everything else while you're training. Can I leave the bursary? I believe you can, but I think there is quite a process that you're going to have to go through. And so I would say you might be able to, but really think about it. The best thing to do is to think about it when you sign up at the beginning. Now, you've signed up, you've considered all of those things, and you think the bursary is going to be right for you. And then down the road, during your training, if you don't complete your training, you will not have to repay the bursary. That never used to be the case. We used to ask for you, depending on if you'd had the bursary for your first year or your second year or even your final year, we would do a pro rata and say, well, you've had the money off us, we have invested in you, we need something back. So the good news is no. The bad news for Welsh Government is that we've lost that investment if you don't complete your course. Obviously, if you don't complete your course, then you don't get your professional training. If you go and complete your course somewhere else, then there will be a repayment. So, for example, you leave after the second year in Wales, and then you move somewhere else outside of Wales, and you pick up your training. If you complete your course, so you're qualified, you're a nurse, you're a podiatrist, radiographer, whatever your course is, then there is an expectation that you meet the 2-year contractual, but life changes, circumstances change. So there is an inbuilt appeal system. And there are 3 categories whether or you can apply. It's not automatic. You will have to go through a system, and you will have to apply for initially a review. If you don't like the review decision, there is a final stage of an independent appeal. And the 3 categories where you say, I'm sorry, my life has changed, I can't make the commitment now, is ill health. If you have to take on caring duties that were not present now, and I mean by that, it's generally children that come along the way, and unfortunate things are there with illness, or yourself, or a direct family member, like your parents, develop something and you become the next of kin and possibly the primary carer. And then the other one is unemployment, the job. Either there's no job, and then how can you fulfill your T's and C's if there's no job? There is a job, but it's impossible for you to take it up. Then we would look at that. Or you've applied for jobs and the terms and conditions are very clear. You have to have applied for at least 3 and done your best to get those jobs, but possibly the competition was too great, the places available were oversubscribed, so there was 14 people going for 2 jobs. So it doesn't matter how great you are, you're probably not going to get that particular position. And we would like, when you apply for jobs, to at least go beyond 1 health board. Because, as I say, if you're restricted so much to even being able to apply for 1 health board only, then possibly the bursary is not for you. I've said about the review system. How do I do that? Well, you don't need to be worrying about that now. This is just to let you know that in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, when you finish your course, there is a system, because we do recognise that life changes. Nobody could have foreseen the pandemic. Nobody could have seen that somebody gets ill or all sorts of things. Life just gets in the way. Hopefully, life goes tickety-boo and you have a great training experience and you come out the other end and you find a job. And that is generally what most people do when they take the bursary or when they train in a healthcare system. But we have to recognise that life changes. So probably the most important slide here is how to get in touch with us. There's a confidential email, dedicated email, which Ali looks at. I occasionally, Monday to Friday, all hours. And it's for all things bursary other than money. And I stress that, because all we will do, if you send us questions about how much is my travel allowance, when do I do this, when do I get that, we will just bounce it back to you, or we will, if we're feeling in a really, really good mood, we'll bounce it over to Owen and their colleagues. So remember, we are here for most things, but not money. We can't answer money questions. Anything else? We don't mind. Whatever the query is, we'll do our best to advise you or signpost you on to something else. And Owen, during this presentation, will in the chat bar or whatever. Owen, apologies, I haven't put your link on there for the email. Also, we have a HCIW webpage, which we will now be going and spending a lot of time updating and putting a lot of stuff on there. At the moment, it's possibly not very relevant, and we'll be putting links. There's a podcast coming shortly as well, both for first years and final year. But the final year podcast is almost ready to go. So there we are. That is the probably most important slide, hiw.bursary@nhs.uk. And then, as I say, Ali will do their best, possibly myself, to answer those. And the website, just punch in Bursary when you go to HCIW. So there we are. That's a very quick run through. The best part of this is possibly when I stop sharing and answer some of the questions, I guess. So there we go. I will stop sharing. We've had lots more people join us. I think we've got about 18. And
Bev,
yeah,
we've had one question, well, not question, but comment from Lauren in the chat. So we haven't had any other questions, just a comment so far.
okay.
She stated that she's live streaming the session to the SLT and nutrition and dietetics students.
Okay, so surely 17 people, someone has a question about that, surely? I cannot believe that nobody has a question. Right, really? Is there anyone out there?
Plenty of the, oh, we've got someone.
At last.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, I applied late, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was wondering how long it would take for everything to go through. I've sent all my identification off, and that's been returned to me. So I just wondered how long you usually wait.
Owen?
Okay, yes. So we operate a 20 working day timescale policy from the point those documents are received. Now, you obviously post your documents to Pontypool for scanning. So they then scan those documents into our work list. And as soon as they're scanned on, that timescale activates in the work list and we assess them in date order. We are in the process of procuring a new system which we're hoping will come into effect for the March and April cohort next year, which will also, the aim for that is to have a shorter working time scale. So that's the current one. But yes, that's
about 20 days.
20 working days, yeah.
And do you get an email just to confirm that everything's going to come through, or does it just happen?
So what you mean when you've posted your documents, is it?
When they confirm that you're eligible to receive the bursaries.
All right, okay, yeah. So once we've looked at your evidence, there'll be 2 stages. We can either approve it because everything's correct. If for whatever reason there's an outstanding document, we would send you a query email. But yes, once we are able to approve it, when you've signed up to the BOSS account, you obviously put your email address. So all correspondence links directly to there, and you get an automated notification of award once it has been approved directly to that email. So yeah, you would get notified as soon as we click approve.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah.
Okay, I've put in the chat bar, everybody, that I forgot to say that flexible working is built into the T&Cs, but it's not marvelous. But and the T&Cs are set by Welsh Government. It says a minimum of 22.5 hours a week. So that's not, 2 days a week. It's 22.5. Now, depending upon your personal circumstances, there may be some latitude, but generally that is the T's and C's. And as I say, I have to try and interpret them and apply to them. So it's 22.5. And I believe the other thing I omitted to say, Owen, when does the 10 weeks cooling period stop? And is it from the day they get their official offer of an award?
No, so the 10-week period actually differs between uni and course because we get the term dates from the unis, and therefore the 10-week deadline will end at different points, but it's from the start of the course, not when they get their notification.
Right.
So that's why we always emphasize to students to apply as early as possible. For instance, for a September cohort, the applications always open after the 5th of April 2022. The reason, 5th of April, whatever year it is. The reason for that is that's the end of the last financial year, and we're always assessing the most recent financial year. So if we opened them in February, people wouldn't have the relevant financial details, so we'd be rejecting applications. But linked to that, say you're a year 1 student and you there's no harm in going on as early as possible after that 5th of April and signing up and doing an application, because we always have to have the final places from the uni around this time of year. Until we get those final confirmations, any student could effectively, and within that 10 weeks, as you've already referenced, Bev, can opt out without a penalty. So what we'd always stress to any student is submit the application if you're in any doubt, because it gets you into the system as soon as possible. And then you've got that 10-week cooling off period if it's not for you based on what you've been awarded. But if you left it and just did it at the last minute, that's when you could get a delay to your funding, because we're dealing with such a high volume of applications. The earlier you can get the application in, the earlier it can be provisionally approved.
Okay. Thanks, Owen.
Yeah, that's all right. I think Ying has asked a question.
There's lots of financy ones in the chat bar, so I'll leave them to you.
Well, I was just going to, that's okay. So is it easier if I type in here or just say them out loud if everyone's on the call? I
don't know. I suppose you could type them in if it's not too distracting. If
that's
you know
okay.
the answer straight away.
Yeah, so
otherwise,
sorry, go on.
Yeah.
So basically, for Ying's question there, can they check their boss account to confirm their bursary app status? Yes, any student can do that, because they'll know they should know their login details from when they created the account, so the username and password. And there's a few keys down the bottom left of the screen. There's the home page, basically, whenever you log into your account. And down the bottom left of the screen, there's a few different statuses. It could either say active, which means it's in our work list waiting to be assessed. So I'll just write that. And that means the student has submitted evidence and it's just waiting for us to look at it. There's pending, which means the student has received an email and that's requested evidence, and they still need to send that evidence in. And then the final one would be approved once the notification of award has been finalized and generated, so it's all done. So they're the 3 main statuses that you could see on your boss account. Sorry, I'll just finish that. And yes, in terms of the pending one, where obviously there's evidence emails that go to the student. When a student first applies, as soon as you submit your application, whatever email address you've registered, you'll get an automated evidence email sent to that address asking for, so for instance, if you put that, you're dependent on your parents, and you've put your mother is employed, your dad is self-employed, the evidence email will break that down for you. So we always say, in one respect, it's only as good as the evidence you've put on the application itself. So if you put like your mother was unemployed when she was really employed, it's going to ask for benefits rather than a P60 for working. So you just need to make sure you do that. And then in year one, you get asked for ID. So like a birth certificate and either a passport or driving license. And then if, as I was saying, we look at your evidence then and it generates a query, we'd always send a query email directly to the same email address every time. So one thing to note as well, where we're looking at this new system and we're hoping it's going to be in for March, April, it's going to be far more automated. So you'll be able to upload all the evidence rather than having to post to Pontypool, because that is a bit of a cumbersome process. We acknowledge that. It's just the system has got a bit more out of date, but we're hoping in the next 6 months, you know, by next spring, we'll have a far more automated system to make the application simpler again as well. I was just gonna have a look at another question. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
there's one about someone who's already had a loan, and can he? I think there's one there.
Where's that one? Sorry.
I will find it for you now.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, second question from Lauren. Another question for one student that is in his second degree. Can he apply and receive both the student loan and the NHS bursary? Is it possible to receive both?
Right. So what happens with this? First of all, if it's a second degree, if the only time you might not be eligible is if you've already done a degree that's on our system. So say you did physio and got the bursary from us, because there's a 3-year funding cap. So if you then went to do adult nursing, there's no guarantee you'd be allowed that bursary funding for that. But say you did something totally unrelated, like, you know, business studies, for example, and then came to do a health course, your previous degree shouldn't affect you getting the funding for this. And then linked to the loan system, yes, you can still have the bursary and you could still technically apply through student loans, and they could give you the reduced rate loan, I believe, the maintenance loan.
That's right, yeah.
So you just don't get the full loan. Yeah, you can obviously opt out and go wholly down the student finance route for the full loan. But if you get the bursary through us, you could still technically apply for a reduced rate loan through student finance.
Okay. I think that's really a useful thing to confirm, because we find that lots of people do. One of the attractions of the bursary, if you're a mature student, is, you know, you may not be eligible for a straight student loan, or you know, you may not want to be in a position where you can do that. So the bursary allows people, particularly mature people, to retrain.
Yes.
And I know that's when people say to me the bursary was really useful, you know, in those circumstances. So that was a good question, I think, for people to
I can see another question as well there.
Is that from Becky?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to go up because I can.
All right, okay, yeah.
So we've got Becky Davis. I would like to know when we will receive our first payments and nursery payments. Thanks.
Yeah, so in terms of the first payments, so for the general bursary side, because just to break that down, the bursary gets assessed before the childcare. So where you're referring to nursery payments, I believe you mean the childcare there. So the bursary is done first. You get sent that notification, and then the childcare look at their part, and you'll get an updated notification with that added on. But in terms of the payments, all the unis make the payments. We don't actually make the payments in student awards. So what we always advise with that is the university specific, your own specific uni will have a set payment date. And they're often, our understanding is you're paid every over 10 to 12 months in the year, but it will differ slightly. So we always advise students to contact their finance office for the exact payment date and the number of months it'll be paid over. But in effect, whatever you're awarded, say it was 4,500, that gets broken down into monthly payments. So
Okay.
you could divide it by 10 or divide it by 12, and it would give you a rough idea of how much you're going to get every month.
Okay, thanks, Owen.
Yeah.
I think you
So-
might have answered this one already, Owen, from Katie Lawley. I have applied but had no email to confirm. Is it delayed due to my university not confirming my place yet?
Yeah, so that sounds like it links to the final college places, which if Katie's a new student in year 1, you can do all the app and have it put ready in place. But in effect, to release the payment schedule to your university, we always need to have those final place lists from the uni themselves for us to release. Until that point, it just stays in waiting for enrolment approval. So what I would recommend, Katie, is if it might be worth you emailing the ABM generic. I've put it in the chat, but we've got our generic email that we use for all correspondence, abm.sas@wales.nhs.uk. If you quote your name and reference number then in the email, and we can check the status for you. Because if it's still outstanding, you should have received a query email. If it's been approved and we're just waiting for the uni, we could just let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I am looking at the time. So
That's right.
another question from Lauren, so she's put, this student has misplaced his child benefit form and is waiting for a new one to be sent out. Would you accept a bank statement of the money received to help speed up the application?
Right. Okay. So this is a good question. And what we always say is it depends if the student is new or continuing. But in year 1, we always like to have the child benefit letter itself because it lists the child or children on there. So we're cross-referencing what is on the application form itself. So the names of your children. But once we've got that initial letter on file in year 1, we will accept a bank statement in the continuing years to make it easier, because we know they don't always send out a new letter every year. But if you didn't have an up-to-date letter, you can still request one from HMRC. But we just like to have a letter on file for year 1, and after that, a bank statement's fine.
There's one from Sophie Redaway.
Yes.
All right.
Above it.
Yes. That was, I got them back to front. Yeah, so from Sophie, I've applied late for university, so still waiting for the bursary. If it is over the 10 weeks, is there a way to still opt out of the bursary?
Well, basically, when we had meetings with HIW, other colleagues in HIW, yes, if you go past the 10 weeks, that's when they'd be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So you could still potentially opt out, I believe, but they would just need to look at the circumstances, and you'd have to email in just to work out, the exact, because there is that generic rule, but then we're not saying it's always 100%. We'd liaise then with HIW.
Yeah, and I believe that's a different part of HR. Is that Denise and all her?
Yeah, that's it.
gang,
Yeah,
Owen?
yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Bev.
Okay. If basically, Sophie, if that does happen, just use us and we'll signpost it to the other people
Right. Yeah.
in HIW rather than complicating who you have to deal with, because we do act as a signposting, because there are some technical issues about the bursary that don't sit with Owen, but they don't sit with me. I tell you what, if you set it up, you wouldn't set it up this way. You really wouldn't, but it is what it is. And we all try and do the best to link in to make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Lauren, is that we done with that one?
Yes, we've done
Yeah.
Lauren's one, which was the child benefit. Katie's responded. We've got another question. We've got another question from Ying. Tamira has put a comment, but also got their hand up, and Sophie's just responded. So
I think Ying, there is a provision.
Yeah.
If you take the bursary, there is a provision for you to apply to come out of it, but you have to link in with your university And then there's a whole bunch of forms and things, but your university would know about that. You can't directly opt out yourself with HIW.
We'll go to Tamira.
Yeah,
Yes,
she's just
sorry.
said she had to go through the university.
Yeah,
Hi.
I was just going to say hi, Bev. It has to be done through the university now after 10 weeks. So students have to contact the university, and we have to do through the changes forms, the new changes forms.
That's right. Sorry, yeah.
That's how it has to be done. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tamira or Tamara or however we pronounce your name. Thank you. Claire, I'm waiting for my tax credits. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Should I send over to you, Owen, I think?
Yeah, so in short, yes, you would do that. Send the latest one you've got. Because what we always say, yeah, and then definitely send a new one when you've got it. Because what we always say to students is you'll always be asked for, like, you know, when you apply, you might be asked for like 10 documents. Now, you might not have, like you say, you might be waiting for something like tax credit. So we always advise sending everything else you've got as soon as possible to get it into the system, because we can at least assess what you've sent in. And then we'd still send a query email for that outstanding document, but it'd be quicker then when it comes back in for us to sign it off if we're just signing off one more document rather than, you know, we always say apply as early as possible with the evidence you do have, to get the process going, really.
I think that sounds like good advice rather
Yeah.
than hanging on and,
Yeah.
you know, you've got 8 and then you're just waiting for another 2
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you wait and you wait
Yeah.
and you wait. And
Because it's
yeah.
quicker, even though you still have to go through the 20 working days, from our point of view as an assessor, it's quicker to sign off a return query than it is doing the app from the first go. So if you get it in sooner rather than later, we can do the bulk of the assessment and then finalize the last bits when the extra info sent in.
Okay. While we're waiting for people to think about if there is anything else that they want to ask,
Yeah.
I'll just add for information purposes, you may have heard that the NHS bursary is being reviewed by Welsh Government. And so that is correct. If somebody says to you, oh, I hear that the bursary is finishing, or you know how these things get misquoted. Yes, the NHS bursary is finishing after 2025. So the current, anyone in the current system, it's not finishing for you. So don't think, oh, well, I've got it this year, but what's happening next year? The commitment from Welsh Government follows, if you think about it, their time when they are in government and can make decisions. So their government, their program of government finishes in 2025. So anyone who qualifies or completes a course by the summer of 2025, you are covered by the current bursary. And there is no change to the terms and conditions at all. There's no intention for this to be changed next year. So I'm just giving you the heads up because already it's not rumors, but information, you know, it's out there. The knowledge is getting out there.
Because if they started
NHS
year
bursary.
1, yeah, so if like they started year 1 and it got cancelled, then you'd be able to phase out whilst you're on the, yeah, exactly.
So the 2022 cohort, as we think of you now, the ones pitching up into the first year, you are the last cohort, other than maybe nursing that is on a different timescale, and they some of their courses start next year. But whenever you start, you have to finish by the summer of 2025. So for most 3-year courses, your colleagues are the last of the NHS bursary. Okay, it's because of the 3-year thing. Now, there is an understanding, I think, that something will carry on, but I have no idea. I'm not privy to any of that. I just wanted to raise it in case you sort of hear a truncated, oh, I heard the bursary's finishing. That is true, but it's not true for you. So, but anyone who's thinking about going to university next year, who knows? No idea. They will not have the current NHS bursary. Okay. What does a student needs to resit a year and this delays graduation? Very good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, and I believe that they still carry on, don't they?
Yeah. So basically, if the thing with any repeat study, as we call it, so it could be for a resit or for an exam, or it could be for, you know, health grounds, for example. You know, what happens now is, as Tammy referred to, we've got a new database operating at the moment, but all it's done is replaced the forms that we were using, but it's still effectively the same process. We get notified by the uni of a student who needs to suspend their studies temporarily. Then a recalculation is done of how much money they've had up to that point. And then we always need confirmation of the student returning to the course to recalculate then going forward. But what I would stress is, I'm not sure if you mean resit a year. If, for example, it was purely failing exams, academic failure, that wouldn't necessarily be, yes, you could repeat the year, but you wouldn't get the bursary funding if it was just for academic failure. So you're not always guaranteed repeat funding for repeat study. But then, for example, say you had to repeat year 2, say for whatever reason you weren't allowed the repeat funding, then when you eventually progress to year 3, you could have the bursary then again, if you see what I mean. You're not always guaranteed the funding for repeat study.
I guess it depends on why you're having to
does.
resit.
Yes,
Basically.
there's a lot of different scenarios,
Lot
and we
of
get on a
scenarios.
case-by-case basis, really. But, you know, it's potentially you can have repeat study if there's extenuating circumstances, such as maybe ill health.
David Mathias has said, how might the end of the bursary affect a 4-year part-time course when the 4th year would be under the scheme? Okay, as far as I am aware, I will double check that, David, with Welsh Government, because I've had to go back and check so many things about the Welsh Government statement, which, as ever, doesn't always answer all the questions. I will have to go back, but my understanding is that the funding ends in 2025. So
I suppose it relates to the fact that if you're on the course, if you're already on the course, you should be allowed to continue and finish your studies.
I will double check this, because
yes, yeah.
we have had different courses starting at different times of different lengths. So the actual thing that Welsh Government came back to us was not the start of the course, but the completion.
Yeah, right, okay.
And it's the completion they are absolutely 100% on. It's the summer of 2025.
Because of the current government.
Because of the current government and that financial envelope. Right. But I will, as for what's happening about the next bursary, all I know is there's a Welsh Government committee currently looking at it. And there is a commitment to go out and consult widely, but consult on what, I have no idea. I really just wanted to raise with people, if they heard on the grapevine that the bursary was finishing, and for them not to be alarmed that you're in this cohort and that you're not going to be in a mess halfway through your studies or something. Yeah. As for future students, as for how the universities, I really am not privy to any of it, but I will double check that. But as I say, I've had to go back several times, and it is the completion in the summer, not the autumn. It's the completion of the summer. So it's the academic year 24-25 is right. The last funding stream.
Yeah, right.
We do have a comment above David's question from Lauren about open days.
Well, what can I tell perspective? I think I've answered that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not privy to any more information.
Yeah. Oh, she's put okay. Thank you. Yep, I can see that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got about 7 minutes left.
as I said earlier, I'm sure if you're like me, you'll walk away and maybe somebody will ask something, or you'll think, I wish I'd asked something. This is the start of the dialogue between us and you. We want to wish you good luck for your course. And that's my mobile going off. Sorry. We want to wish you good luck. And as I say, if the bursary is right for you, that's great. If it's not, then that's fine also, because you need to make sure that you're taking the best possible funding route that you can. If you don't take the bursary, please don't think that we don't want you in the NHS in Wales. We do. We do, very much so. We hope you have a good training experience. There are fantastic universities in Wales. So either way, however you fund your studies, we'd like to just wish you well. Hope you come out the other end of what I call, you know, the factories of helping to train really good healthcare professionals, and that we hope that you do join the NHS or local authorities, depending upon what courses you are later on. And probably in about a few years' time, you'll link up again with the bursary and start thinking about, oh, what happens next? Which is when we do lots more Q&A sessions about the terms and conditions, because then it starts feeling a bit real, you know, about, oh, I've made this commitment. Gosh, my 3 years have gone really quickly. Oh, crumbs, I better start thinking about getting a job now and entering the professional world. So we tend to do a lot more with final year students. But that's not to say that if at all during your studies you take the bursary and you want to get in touch, we're more than happy for you to do so, or for Owen as well, because I believe the bursary is assessed on an annual basis, isn't it, Owen?
It is. So that's another important thing
go.
to note, that obviously when you're in year one or any of your years, if you know you've got another year to go or another 2 years to go, as I was saying, the 5th of April in any calendar year after that date, because the most recent financial year has ended, the applications would be open and you'll know, you'd have the most up-to-date financial evidence. Once you've done like your year one app, if you've just applied now to start in year one, when it comes to next spring, you would just need to go on and you use the same BOSS account every time, but you need to just submit a new application. It'll be based on the finances to April 2023. And then it's the same process again of assessing that financial year. So yeah, you always need to do a new app every year, basically.
Okay, I think that's important, that again, because life changes. You know, you can't be assessing, can you, of various personal data, you know, for a 3-year period. It has to just go by the financial year and the year of the study. So
exactly, and sometimes people's awards can change dramatically from year to year because, for instance, parental income might have increased for whatever reason or decreased. So, you know, sometimes we get queries, why is my award £1,000 less this year than last year? We'll look at the account and maybe the father is earning £10,000 more. So there's no there's no guarantee your award is going to stay the same every year. It can, a lot of students awards do, but also it's linked to the term dates as well and the length of the course. So there's a lot of different factors. Like some courses are shorter in 1 year than the other year, so that has an impact on the amount because you have that extra week's allowance. So it's a lot of different factors that can influence the amount on an award.
Okay, well, we're getting some thank yous, which is good, because I was just going to wrap it up and say, you know, we do these sessions hopefully to help you, and so if there have been of use, it's good to know. We're getting some thumbs up and some, you know, that's great, and that's encouraging for the remainder of the sessions. Also, you will have been given the dates of the other sessions. If you want to get back into another session because you're a glutton for punishment and you want to listen to this all over again, then, you know, there's no restriction on entry either. Or if you're with flatmates or whatever and they say, you know, was it worth it? shall I bother? Because we've all got competing demands. Then hopefully you'll say, yes, you found it useful. And for the sake of an hour, it might be a good idea for them to try and link to any of the sessions. But as I say, we will put a link up as well. And we'll try and do that quite quickly with our comms team. Okay, so if there's no more questions, we got 2 minutes going. I'm going to wrap up the session. Thank you very much, Owen.
That's all right.
Thank you,
Thanks
Ali.
everyone. Thanks.
Thank you for course tutors who've helped share the link. And importantly, thanks to the students who've given up their time to engage and link up with us. Good luck, and we're here if you need us.
Okay,
Over and out,
thanks.
I think.
Okay.
Over
All
and
right.
out.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.